guys, this is Summer from the channel Summer Love. I wanted to do a lactation video. Just things that I wish I would have known before I went through the whole breastfeeding process, and things I learned the hard way, and also from speaking to a lactation specialist. When I was in labor, they pumped me with lots of antibiotics, so that caused myself and my child to get thrush in her mouth, and she gave it to me. We were giving it back and forth. One thing to do to help prevent that and to make the thrush go down is to use coconut oil before and after feeding, so you can clean their mouth with coconut oil with a rag or a piece of gauze. And I recommend applying coconut oil to yourself to protect yourself, not too much, especially when they're a newborn. You don't really want them to digest anything other than your breast milk, especially the colostrum in the beginning is the best. They gave me this cream that was supposed to be all natural in the hospital. It had a lot of natural ingredients in it, but even though it was a natural product, you know, their digestive system is so sensitive that it gave my newborn baby lots of gas, lots of pain, and it just caused lots of issues. And even when I mentioned it to a nurse, she reassured me that it was perfectly fine. And once I stopped using it, all of those problems went away. And then, you know, you have to realize that after birth, you know, you're going to be extremely sensitive. You're going to be in pain, irritable. It's going to hurt when they first latch on. And that's just, you know, given something that you'll work through. But by the time you go through all the other pain of giving birth and stuff, I mean, it's kind of a mosquito bite after everything else. You know, by the second day of breastfeeding, my nipples were, that's my child in the background, you know, so excuse her. My nipples were cracking, bleeding. I had blisters all over them. It was extremely painful, especially with the thrush on top of it. The thrush felt like razor blades going through my milk ducts, through my nipple. It was just extremely painful. How I coped with that was to, you know, let her latch on the breast that was hurting the least. I brought my breast pump with me to the hospital. That's very important in case something like that does happen to you. So that, you know, I let her latch on for a little bit just to stimulate it, and then I would pump and get whatever colostrum I could. The first time I pumped, I only produced 1 drop of colostrum, and the nurse made me feel really bad about it and was trying to push the formula onto me to give that to my baby. But I didn't give in. I did not give her the formula. We gave her that 1 little drop of colostrum and just kept stimulating, you know, especially the first couple of days after birth. They have so many nutrients from the womb, and especially if you do a delayed cord cutting, and they get all of that nutrient-rich blood from the cord blood back into their body, then they'll be good for a few days. So don't worry too much about that. As long as you keep stimulating, and then after several days, you will start to produce more and more. One thing that I didn't realize was to keep the baby on 1 breast the entire time you're breastfeeding. As far as, you know, every 2 hours, you're going to need to breastfeed. So for that one time, for that 2 hours, go ahead and just leave them on that 1 breast, especially if they're latching on well. You start producing, don't take them off as soon as, you know, you think halfway through the time you're supposed to breastfeeding, you switch them up. You know, your body's going to think that you only need half the milk than what you really need to produce. You know, once I started to do that, after I talked to a lactation specialist, and I started to keep her on the same breast, or even if the time I was breastfeeding, if it was cut short, she would only breastfeed for 5 minutes or something, then I would continue the next time, but after 2 hours, I would continue on that same breast because it didn't get a full time to produce the milk. And once I did that, my milk production went way up. And if you do produce lumps in your breast, you start getting pain and stuff. The milk ducts start getting infected, which that happened to me 2 or 3 times. How I got through that is during those times, I would just massage my breasts and stuff. I would do cold, compresses on them, and even cold cabbage. I would get a head of cabbage and put it in the fridge. And every time I would lay down or even walk around the house, go to sleep, it's perfectly shaped for your breasts as well. I would put it on, and you don't want to wear a bra at those times. If you wear a bra, it's going to make your milk ducts, it's going to make it harder for that infected milk to drain out. So you're going to want to not wear a bra, and put the cold cabbage on. And one time I was so infected in one of my breasts, and I put the cabbage on, I went to sleep, and when I woke up, I was like, oh, what's that smell? And then I, got the cabbage off. I kind of forgot what happened, and all the infected milk came out. Like, it drew out all of that milk, and I just washed up, put some coconut oil, because the coconut oil keeps the bacteria down and stuff, and the infection went away. But you're not going to want your child to drink that milk if your milk ducts are infected. You're going to want to pump it out. If they do, there was times where I didn't really realize that I was starting an infection, and she did drink it, and then she threw it up right away. So that was good. At least she threw it up. And when you are pumping at those times, if you do have a clogged duct, then you're going to want to massage it. Like, sometimes the milk is stuck. You don't want it to coagulate in there. The harder it gets and stuff, the harder it's going to be to get out. You might have to go to the hospital eventually, so you don't get septic in your blood. But so you're going to want, it's going to hurt, but you want to just massage it, push it, and try to push it out, and then do the cold cabbage and just try to rest, drink lots and lots of fluids. That's another thing. From the beginning, you have to drink tons of fluids. I didn't know that once I was in labor in the hospital, that they weren't going to let me drink any liquids. I'm someone who drinks tons of water every day. And especially being in labor and everything, all the stress of it, I needed tons and tons of water. And they would not let me drink anything. They would let me chew on some ice cubes. And just be hydrated before you go to the hospital. Bring water with you. When you do give birth, in the beginning, you have to drink at least 9 bottles of water a day to produce the colostrum and everything that you need. And then after that, how much water you need goes up. So from there. So another thing is, in the hospital, they might try to teach you all these fancy ways to hold a baby, so that they'll latch on. None of those fancy ways, the football way and all that, none of that worked for me. It was painful. I just did the traditional way, having her head here, her body across. I'm not sure what it's called. But, if you find a way that works, I would say stick to it. You don't have to worry about switching up positions, doing different ways all the time. You find a way, stick to it. Just remember that pumping does not stimulate your breast milk. So that was one thing that I had to learn the hard way. I thought that not only her latching on would stimulate me, but the pumping as well. So I'd pump, and then the next day my milk production would go way down. I'm like, what's going on? I pumped like crazy today. But that's just getting rid of your milk. It's almost telling your body that I don't need this milk, and my baby doesn't need it anymore. You're getting rid of the milk. The baby's not touching your breast. So you're going to want to stimulate at least once a day, unless you're severely infected and you can't have the baby latch on at all. But you don't want to go more than a day or two without your baby at least putting their mouth on your nipple. You want to keep that stimulation going. And I don't recommend laying down with your baby while breastfeeding until they're at least 8 months or more. And especially not if you're a heavy sleeper or if you move a lot when you sleep. You know, I used to be a heavy sleeper, but it seemed like as soon as I gave birth, I was on such high alert with my baby and wanting to make sure she's okay, that any little noise or anything, I'd wake up immediately. And I stopped moving like after I gave birth, because, you know, I know you're not supposed to, but sometimes I would have her in the bed with me, but kind of on the other side and the corner, you know, near the wall and stuff, so she couldn't fall off. And just if you're a heavy sleeper or anything, I wouldn't sleep with my baby latched on at all. And if it does come to that and you do feel like you do need to lay down and your baby is breastfeeding, they do have ankle monitors that can keep track of the baby's oxygen level. So if their oxygen level does go down, if you are suffocating your child by accident, an alarm will go off. I know that they're expensive in the store if you buy them brand new, but so many moms buy them. They might not even use them, or they use them for a short period of time. And you could look up on, you know, Facebook Marketplace or different places like that to see if people are selling them secondhand. I know my best friend found one for like $6, a brand new one, at the Goodwill. So that's also a good place to look. And I know from the beginning I wanted to breastfeed for a long time. Like I had all these long goals in my head, but you know, all the difficulty that I went through with breastfeeding, you know, just being 2 weeks into it, like it seemed so overwhelming. And, you know, just the thought of like, oh my gosh, I have another, year and a half or whatever, you know, to breastfeed. It's too much. I would say set small goals for yourself. If you've been breastfeeding for 2 weeks and it's been hard, say I did it for 2 weeks and I can do it for another 2 weeks, and set 2-week goals, or double however long you've done it. You've been doing it for 2 months. I've done it for 2 months, and I can do it again for 2 months. You know, another 2 months, and just do it as long as you possibly can. Everyone's different. Everyone's not gonna produce the same. I know lives get in the way as far as your job and things, and having to put babies in daycare, it makes it very difficult. So you shouldn't feel bad if you have to stop breastfeeding. As long as you did everything you can to do it as long as possible, I would say that that's a win. And one thing that is very important is to make sure you have enough support when you're breastfeeding. Because I know there's times where I was like, I'll just let her do it this one time, and I'll hold her, and I'm in an uncomfortable spot. My back is hurting, my arm's falling asleep, and I'm just like, I'll just do it this one time. It's fine. And then if you get into that mentality, then you're going to say that the next time and the next time. And I wound up breastfeeding in an uncomfortable position for months after, just because I got it in my head one time that it was okay. Take the time, even if your baby cries for a minute or two, it's much better for yourself and your mental health, and just being able to breastfeed longer, and, almost, enjoying your baby at that time, and bonding with your baby and watching them. And you can take sweet videos of yourself with your baby and stuff at the time, instead of sitting there being so uncomfortable, being in pain, and just like waiting every second, like counting the clock and thinking, I can't wait for this child to get off me. It just changes the whole dynamic of it if you're comfortable. And I found like the bobby pillow was the best for me. And definitely pillows behind you when you're sitting. You're going to get extremely hungry while you're breastfeeding. It's great to have snacks, especially water. Like I'll be perfectly fine. I'll sit down to breastfeed. And then in the middle of breastfeeding, I feel like I'm dying. I've been in the desert for 5 years. Make sure you have water around, some snacks, and that'll make it a lot easier to get through, especially long periods of time of breastfeeding, especially if you get up to, 1 year old and older. They're going to want to breastfeed for a while. So it just makes it easier to get through. I got the bobby pillow as well as the pillow that clips around the back of you. That one was really expensive. And I didn't even use it once. Thank God I was able to take it back to the store. But, I would say the bobby pillow is good enough. And also, things like that. People donate all the time to the Goodwill. You can get them, you can wash them, put them in the washer dryer. You don't have to spend $30, $40 on a pillow. They have them all the time at certain Goodwills and things. And the times when you do have to pump and you can't produce, or, you have an infection going on, or you need to just pump just because you're going to be away from your baby for a while. Someone's going to be watching your baby. The best thing to do is to pump it into glass bottles. And I would store my milk just in a glass bottle in the fridge. It usually has a cover on it. And that way I could just take it out the fridge and I could heat it up directly into a pan. You never want to put breast milk in the microwave. It's going to pretty much ruin all the nutritional value. And it's going to make it, the milk essentially radioactive. It's going to be very bad for your baby if you do that. You're better off giving your baby cold milk if they'll drink it, rather than putting the milk in the microwave. You're going to want to get a little pot, put some water in it, about the same amount of water that is going to be like the fill line. However much milk is in the bottle, that's how much water outside of the bottle in the pot you're going to want to fill up. And then just heat it up on low until it's lukewarm. Always test your bottle on your wrists, not on the outside of your arm, because that's not as sensitive. And also realize that the baby's mouth might be a little bit more sensitive than even the inside of your wrist. So, just be aware of that. Especially if they pull away or something when you do give the baby a bottle, just automatically assume that it might be too hot. And sometimes, if you don't shake up the bottle really good after you do heat it up, it might be cooler on top than it is on bottom. So when you test it, it might feel cooler. And then when the baby starts drinking it, it'll be hotter. So make sure you shake up the bottle really good. Test it a couple times, even put a drop on your lip or something like that. You do not want to burn your baby's mouth. And then also times where I did have infected milk ducts and things, and she could not drink my milk at all. I had to pump and dump it. I did give her goat's milk, and so I did not give her any formula. And there was a couple times I gave her some oat milk or something like that, but that's really high in sugar. So I found through research that goat's milk is the closest milk to human milk. It doesn't have, all the things that cow's milk has that, our bodies can't digest. Like, it's really easy for them to digest. And it was the only other type of milk that she would just guzzle down as fast as my milk. So, these are just some tips that I hope helps you. That helped me out a lot. So thanks for your time.